All right, taking a look at lesson 4, graphing sine and cosine functions. So here we have our basic sine function, y equals sine of x. And remember, sine is always of an angle, so this x represents our angle. That's why you can see these measurements here in degrees. And then y equals cosine of x. Again, x represents an angle, and the y value represents the side ratio, right, between a right triangle. Okay, so domain, we can plug in any angle we want to, and we can get an answer out. Our range, what we get out, we saw that we only go up to 1 and go down to -1. We can't get numbers bigger than that, right, because our opposite side can't be bigger than our hypotenuse on a right triangle, and our adjacent side can't be bigger than our hypotenuse, right? So that's why we only go from -1 to 1, can't get bigger than 1. Amplitude just means from the midline, from the center line that goes through up to the top, that distance, or from the midline down, the crest, or I guess this is the crest and this is the trough, right? That distance is 1. Okay, so that's the amplitude. Midline is the middle line that goes through them all, and that one most time is y equals 0. Right here is the midline for cosine. Period length is either 360 or 2 pi, right? And then oscillating, so it's just going between -1 and 1. Our answers are just going from, as we can see, if we look at the y value 0, y value 1, y value 0, y value -1, 0, we just keep on going between those answers of 1 and -1. Same thing with cosine, except for you're going from 1, 0, -1, 0, back to 1, so you're oscillating between those two, just jumping back and forth. Okay, so we're going to graph these today. And so if we look at this function, we want to identify what the amplitude is, the midline is, and our period length, okay? So the middle line is, we first maybe want to find what our highest number is. So max number, looks like we're counting by, so this would be 2.5 is to here. So, and 5 is here, so we're somewhere in between a little bit. Okay, and then down here we're also going to that same number a little bit past, a little bit past. So our middle would be splitting that difference. So from here to the ground, or x-axis, I should say. So it looks like we're maybe counting by like 1.25. That'd be another 1.25, so that'd be 3.75. So maybe this is maybe 4. We could say call it 4. So our max is at 4. And then this bottom is -4 then. And so this distance is 8, right? So if I cut that in half, half would be right in the middle right here. So there's our midline right there. So the midline is y equals 0. Our amplitude is just from the midline up. So that would be a distance of 4, right? So my amplitude is 4. And they usually label that with an A. And then period length is, when does it start repeating itself? So you can start at the origin if you want to, and you just draw your graph and see, where do I start repeating that same pattern of going up, then down, and then back up. Right here I stop, right? So the distance from 0 to pi would be just pi, so my period length is just pi. So that's how you identify the amplitude, period, and midline. So the middle is right directly in the middle, cuts it in half. So that means from the midline up and the midline down would be the same distance. So if you pick a line, you could pick anything really. If I wanted to, I could pick, say, this line right here, right? But then if I measure this distance from here to here, it's not the same as from here all the way to the bottom, right? It has to be the same. So when you do your midline, it has to be cutting it in half, right? And you just label that with the y equals what y value is it going through.